Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your patience. Today we will discuss about potential energy projects in the Black Sea region and the potential of enhancing cooperation between riparian states, countries like Romania, Moldova and Ukraine in the energy sector. If we speak today about Ukraine, we must speak about Russia, and if we speak about Russia, we must speak about energy. Because energy traditionally was used by Russia, as we all know, was used as a geopolitical tool, as a leverage in dealing with each country in Europe and with the European Union as a whole. I'm very glad to have distinguished speakers in this panel today. And I will start with a very energetic energy minister, the energy minister of Romania, Mr. Sebastian BURDUJA. While trying to recommend some discussion topics. Some of them have been already mentioned today by my four speakers, and I would briefly mention them again. Nuclear potential, renewable energy potential, both onshore and offshore, natural gas offshore potential, interconnection potential. So all these energy security elements, we should think on how specifically in a concrete manner we can use all these tools in order to increase energy capacity and energy security among countries like Romania, Republic of Moldova and Ukraine. Dear Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and I hope you can hear me well and see me well. I wish I was there with you.
All good, sound is good, video is good, thank you.
Right, I'll keep my remarks brief. I will have to run around 5:30, but first of all, congratulations for this wonderful event. As you have accustomed us to very prominent and substantive discussions. And it's an honor for me to take part in this and add my own thoughts to this very important issue. In fact, I think it is the issue confronting us in this part of the world, at least. Energy is at the heart of economic competitiveness. I'm an economist by training, but it is also at the heart of geopolitics in our region and has been for many, many years. What Russia's Putin has accomplished, I think, is that it has finally freed this region of the dependency on this weapon that was used in many occasions for blackmail. And I was in Chișinău on Monday, and I can tell you that the Republic of Moldova, and I'm sure you'll hear this from my colleagues across the river, is more prepared than ever to face the coming winter or this winter, to purchase gas, to have all the structures needed to have this resilience. Of course, with some help from Romania, and we've always been there, both for the Republic of Moldova and for Ukraine when we were asked to provide help with emergency energy or whatever was needed. But I think we are now at a time when finally Russia's weapons in the energy sector are of very little relevance, if any, and certainly Europe as a whole has vastly reduced the dependency on Putin's energy sources. So all that is good. What is also good is that Romania has an amazing potential to serve as a pillar of stability and as an energy hub. And this is not the Minister of Energy speaking, but truly, if you will, the economist speaking. If you look at the data and what the country plans for the next coming years, it is truly stunning. It's remarkable. So let me just briefly note, obviously, on gas in the Black Sea, we have the Neptune Deep project. There was a long-awaited final investment decision that was taken in the very early days of my mandate, so about 6 months ago. And that means 4 billion euros invested in Neptune Deep by two companies, Romgaz and OMV Petrom. It also means essentially doubling our gas production in 2027 and onward. It also means that we will have that gas available, and I have publicly noted that it should be available for the Romanian economy, and I hope to see a lot of value added in fertilizers, in the pharma industry, even in the production of electricity, and there are multiple large gas-based production plants that are now being built. And so that will make Romania in 2027, by the end of that year, the largest gas producer in Europe. At the same time, we are working hard on offshore wind. It's a new topic. It's a topic that we have consulted with the State Department on, with the Netherlands, with the UK, with many other countries that are quite advanced in exploiting offshore wind. And I think that tomorrow we will finally have all the approvals to pass it through government and move on to Parliament with our draft law. Again, it's very well written, in my opinion. It involved a lot of work from many specialists, and it basically states that the Ministry of Energy will conduct a study of the entire area that will be done by mid-2025, that will identify go-to areas and be able to speed up permitting, especially in the environmental sector. So by 2031, 2032, we should be able to see the first windmills off of the Black Sea coast. Probably far enough that they do not affect tourism in any way. The Black Sea has certain features that it's quite shallow for a very long distance off the shore, and then it gets to be very, very deep. In any case, I believe that at the latest in January we should have this important piece of legislation and continue to move forward with it. You also noted the onshore potential of renewable energy. Indeed, we have invested quite a bit in this potential. From the Recovery and Resilience Facility, we have allocated close to €500 million, and we're coming up to the end of a long evaluation process. The interest from the market was huge. I think 744 projects were submitted, and our target was to install at least 950 megawatts. We have already signed contracts for over 600 megawatts, and we have spent about a quarter of the budget. So the signs are very positive that by the end of the call, we will have finance projects that exceed 2,000 megawatts, and I hope to wrap that up by the end of this month, so very, very soon. We are also putting up 1.5 billion euros for solar and wind through the modernization fund. We've already launched the first call for public institutions, city halls, hospitals, kindergartens, schools, cultural centers. They will be battling for €500 million, and the call was launched on December 6th. And just for you to have an idea of the level of interest, I think the funds, €500 million, were essentially depleted by the end of the first day. And we have a strong pipeline for supplementing that budget from the modernization fund. 2 additional calls next year, each about €500 million, one for production of solar and wind for private sector entities and one for self-consumption for private sector entities. So, you know, all of that plus private projects that do not require grant funding, we should see at least 6, 7, maybe up to 10 gigawatts of renewable onshore by the end of the decade in Romania. And adding to all this, obviously, it's many households are putting up solar panels. A year and a half ago, less than 20,000 households were doing it. Today, we have over 100,000 households that have put up solar panels, and they cover their own consumption and more. So they are able to contribute to the system. And as a matter of fact, their total installed capacity now basically exceeds the capacity that we have in our nuclear plant in Cernavoda. One last point from my end, I haven't touched on the nuclear program, but I'm happy to do it if there's interest. But in addition to all these new investments, I think it's critical that we invest in our transport and distribution system. It's very hard to do it for gas. The EU is very skeptical of these investments. But for electricity, we have over 1 billion euros from the modernization fund for new lines, better lines in both the transport and the distribution system. And we've already signed contracts for those. So we'll see the payoff in a few years from now when the projects are finalized. And in addition, and I'll end on this note, we're working on a very important project called the high voltage direct current cable, the east-west interconnector. This is a critical investment where our transport operator, Transelectrica, is involved with a number of other key partners from the US, the Emirates, France, and Romania, of course, and that will essentially evacuate the additional energy produced in the Black Sea through offshore wind and by the Black Sea in the 2 additional large-scale reactors that we're planning for 2031, 2032. So I hope all these are good signs, and I look forward to the discussions.
Thank you very much, Minister. Indeed, quite a record, impressive record of what is going on in the Romanian energy sector. However, considering the fact that you indicated that you will be leaving us at around 5:30, I dare to ask for some additional comments from your side concerning your vision about how this energy potential, this Romanian energy potential, can be used in promoting multilateral cooperation between Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine in terms of enhancing energy security of the concerned states. What would be your comments in this regard? What do you anticipate that might be sectors and ways and means to promote such cooperation? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've touched on this in Chișinău, where we signed a very important MOU. Basically, Romania has achieved energy independence already. In gas, we are covering our consumption, our current consumption with the current production, and as I noted earlier, only a few years from now, we'll be able to double that production. So we'll be able to export gas and or electricity for the needs of our neighbors at a very competitive price. In electricity, we're also, this year, we have been a net exporter of electricity after many years of importing. And that is the result of additional renewables coming online. And we have done that while taking offline a number of coal-based plants. And by 2026, essentially, we will have removed over 5,000 megawatts of coal-based plants from our system. That creates some difficulties because you do need baseload production. So as a transition fuel, we will use gas, and we have projects that exceed 3,500 megawatts roughly on gas-based production, as well as nuclear, where we are accelerating on both the two large-scale reactors, units 3 and 4 in Cernavota, and the small modular reactor project in Doicești, that has moved recently to FEED 2, to the second phase, and moving full speed ahead with that. So through this balanced mix of base load and renewables, we will be able to provide electricity to our neighbors, as well as gas, as mentioned earlier. To do that, there is a technical constraint, and that's why the concept of interconnectivity is critical. So we are working on many projects with the Republic of Moldova, for instance. I'll give you that example. We have accelerated a very important connection, Suceava-Bălți. It's 400 kilovolts. That will provide a second connection in addition to the one in the south currently operational, through a region that is a lot safer, a lot more secure. The southern part of the Republic of Moldova goes through Gagauzia. It's a region with certain local tensions, sensitivities. This will provide electricity for the north. And now we believe that we can get that done within the next 3.5, maybe even 3 years, if all the tendering goes right. Plus an additional third line, which would be in the middle of these two. The exact location is to be determined, but that's another project we seek to accelerate. The same goes for Ukraine. We have understood the call for increasing interconnection capacity, not just with Romania, but really with all of the EU. And we're working hard to accelerate those projects as well. So I think that's key to energy security, to have multiple options, multiple routes. I have not mentioned an important project that we have also launched and are working hard on, which is the Green Corridor, connecting Azerbaijan, Georgia, under the Black Sea, Romania, and Hungary. And that, of course, should, well, it's two ways, so we should be able to both import and export green energy from the Caucasus, and that will also be available for our neighbors too. So I believe that as the reconstruction of Ukraine takes place, that's a matter of time. Romania will be a vital springboard for that, especially for the southern part of Ukraine, including with the help of the Republic of Moldova, of course. So it becomes an absolutely fundamental hub of development. And for that, you will need a lot of construction materials, a lot of industry that is energy intensive. That's why we are accelerating these projects, and we believe that in a few years, the prices on the market will be extremely competitive for both gas and electricity.
Thank you very much, Minister. I appreciate it very much. Let me please now move to the next speaker of this panel, the Minister of Energy of the Republic of Moldova, Mr. Victor PARLICOV. And I would start by challenging the Minister if he could indicate what are the hot topics that, in his opinion, are jeopardizing the strengthening of cooperation between Romania and Moldova in terms of energy security. And particularly, as we have noted from Minister BURDUJA's comments, presently the role that Romania is playing and is intending to play in enhancing energy security of the Republic of Moldova is that of becoming a supplier of electricity and natural gas power. But let's think ahead of that. Let's hope that one day that energy supply will be mutual flows of energy. But in order to reach that point, we have to develop together joint energy projects, that is interconnectors, joint capacities, and so on. with a view to achieving such a goal, what would be, in the opinion of Mr. PARLICOV, those elements that he sees as a challenge in reaching such a goal in the short term? Thank you very much.
The war in Ukraine marked a new era because since 1991, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Fukuyama wrote the end of history, and the West was largely living in the paradigm of the end of history of Fukuyama. Whereas Russia largely lived in a paradigm of another philosopher, that of Clash of Civilizations by Huntington. Unfortunately, it takes a war in the middle of Europe in the 21st century of this scale to give us an answer to what essentially is a philosophical debate. And instead of two people having a philosophical debate over a table, we're seeing civilian infrastructure destroyed, we're seeing civilian people die, we're seeing millions of people suffering in the 21st century. This war has caught us unprepared as a country, but has also earned us a name of a small country with a big heart. It is due to our people, and I'm proud to say that it was a genuine popular movement to help the Ukrainian refugees, and the way we handled the crisis, the way we treated them and helped them, shows that Moldova belongs to the free world, to the democratic societies, to the civilized part of the world. It is symbolic that the war was launched by Putin just several hours after the Moldovan and Ukrainian electricity transmission systems disconnected from Russia and Belarus in what is called the winter test. That was a preparatory phase for the synchronization with ENTSO-E. That underlines and emphasizes the important role that energy has for the entire security and political and even geopolitical dimension. And that also emphasizes how Russia has been operationalizing its energy sources and energy influence to weaponize it. What Putin didn't expect, though, I believe, was the speed and the solidarity, the speed of mobilization and the solidarity that the Western society will show in supporting Ukraine and in helping them resist the unfair war that they found themselves in. Now, we see it in many ways. It is the political support, it is the military support, it is the financial support. But on the energy side particularly, I want to underline that it was critical both for Ukraine and for Moldova, this synchronization of grids that was allowed, that was permitted in breach of all standard procedures after just 3 weeks after the Russian invasion. This is what kept the lights on in Ukraine when their infrastructure was bombarded. This is what kept the lights on in Moldova, and this is what changed the entire dynamics in approaching the solution and the reintegration of our country. Now, what we have done and how we coped. In Moldova, of course, we first of all diversified off from the dependence on a single supplier of gas. From 100% dependency on the supply of gas from Gazprom, we went to 0% gas from Gazprom on the territory that we control. Of course, there is a Transnistrian region that we do not control, that is still supplied with de facto free Russian gas. We were the first, through the state-owned company Energoatom, we were the first ones who actually piloted the entire vertical corridor route from Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, via Moldova, all the way to the Western Ukrainian gas storage facilities. And that actually opened, and we can now serve as contributors to the security of gas supply to the Central Europe, instead of being a country that is a consumer of security. We have designed an extremely agile and flexible support scheme to compensate for the vulnerable consumers the huge spike of prices that we faced. Largely, I must say, Moldova has won its battle for energy security. However, now we still have to win our battle for hearts and minds of people, because they have suffered a lot as a result of the price spikes and as a result of the energy crisis that was all over Europe. Now, how can we essentially contribute to the rebuild of Ukraine from Moldova? First of all, we are trying to leverage our position on the vertical gas corridor. We have started to work with Ukraine to not only reduce the prices for transit of gas through the vertical corridor, but also to create a bundled tariff together, Ukraine plus Moldova, on our part of the vertical corridor. We want to go ahead, and we believe that it is possible to have a common bundled tariff from Bulgaria all the way to with Ukraine, for this vertical corridor to be comfortable to be used by as many traders as possible, and to serve as an alternative route, as the main alternative route to filling in the gas storage facilities in Western Ukraine in summer, to be used for covering the peak demand in Central and Western Europe in winter. This is exactly what was previously the main competitive advantage of Gazprom, that we can now take over and use with the other alternative suppliers of gas. On another note, we're strengthening our electricity interconnections with Romania, and this is not only to improve our security, but this is also to serve as a bridge on electricity for supplying, both for shifting energy from Ukraine to Romania and from Romania to Ukraine. Essentially, we can become this bridge, and if Ukraine will need more energy for reconstruction, we will eventually be able to bring this energy, including from Romania. We also believe that there's a huge potential in integrating. For our country, there's no other alternative to integrate more renewables than to actually be open and be part of a much bigger market. And in that respect, both interconnections that we're building with Romania and the strong interconnections we're already having with Ukraine will serve as a leverage for investment in green energy in our country, but also will serve the purpose to supply the necessary volumes of energy to Ukraine when it's needed. Thus, I want to reiterate that Moldova wants to be part of this big process of rebuilding Ukraine. We are part of the civilized world, and it is only together that we can ensure not only peace and security, but also development and well-being in our countries and in Ukraine after the war finishes. And we believe it must finish with a victory of Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
I have to excuse myself. I was asking questions to a recording, but the Minister of Energy of Moldova, he seems to be brilliant. He anticipated my question and he managed to answer precisely. Let me please move to, sorry, I didn't read the script properly, so let me please move now to the next speaker, who I hope and assume is live online, Mr. Petro KOTIN, Chairman of Energoatom of Ukraine. Sir, are you with us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and good evening, actually, everybody. And it's my great pleasure to meet everyone and have the opportunity to join today's discussions. And first of all, on behalf of Energoatom and on behalf of myself, I would like to thank our friends from Romania and from Moldova for all the support, us and willingness to help Ukrainian people to struggle against Russian aggression. And the Russian invasion undermined the energy security of Ukraine. Due to missile and drone attacks, we have lost 75% of thermal power plants, 33% of combined heat power plants, 90% of wind and 40% of solar facilities. But we managed to overcome these challenges, not completely. Mostly thanks to a strong nuclear energy sector in our country, Ukraine has deep expertise, capacity and experience in safe operation of nuclear power plants, which have proved their robustness during the barbarian Russian war. And today in Energoatom, our nuclear power plants, which are located on the territory controlled by Ukraine, still produce over 55% of to cover our total electricity demand of the country. And of course, with Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, we could have provided much more. 6 units, 1,000 megawatt each. Before the Russian aggression and occupation, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant produced almost half of nuclear electricity of Energoatom and 25% of the total energy mix of the country. After the start of this occupation, the occupiers turned the plant into the Russian military base and a source of potential nuclear disaster for Ukraine and the entire world. Every day of the occupation makes this danger more and more realistic. The only way to prevent a nuclear accident is to immediately return the full control over the NPP to Ukraine, to Energoatom, which is legal operator of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. And once deoccupied and restarted, the NPP will produce clean and cheap electricity both for domestic use and export, as it was done by these nuclear power plants during all these 40 years of safe operation before the aggression. The second important factor is the connection of the Ukrainian energy grid to the European power system, and SOE, which happened last year, and it was mentioned already on this conference. This fact, it opened new opportunities for operations in the energy market of Europe and power exchange between Ukraine and our neighboring countries, in particular Romania and Moldova. Today, Energoatom has a huge export potential for electricity sales. Taking into account Ukraine's needs, our company can sell electricity with capacity of 2 gigawatt and beyond, subject to available cross-border capacity. In June 2022, Energoatom started supplying electricity to Moldova. Further, in May of this year, we commissioned the renewed Khmelnytsky nuclear power plant, the Rzeszów line, between Ukraine and Poland. This shows that electricity export from nuclear power plants is an extremely promising area of trade between Ukraine and the neighboring European Union countries. For this, we need to build new and restore operation of existing transmission capacities, new transmission lines, new interconnections. One of such lines is a 750 kilovolt transmission line from South Ukraine to Isaksha. Restoration of this line would allow exporting electricity from the South Ukraine nuclear power plant to Romania by a separate line and increase the capacity of the interconnector with Romania to 1,200 megawatts, as well as increase the reliability of electricity supply in southern Ukraine and Moldova. We also believe that this project can be implemented using the funds of the European Commission and would like to ask you to support this. I would also like to highlight that the new energy strategy of Ukraine sets the target to achieve carbon neutrality of the energy sector by 2050. The strategy envisages development of modern and safe green and nuclear generation based on the advanced reactor technologies. In this respect, we have huge plans and great plans actually to build a number of new nuclear power units in Ukraine. This is about completion of the construction of unit number 3 and unit number 4 at Khmelnytsky nuclear power plant, construction of 2 AP1000 designed power units at the same site, and deployment of the small modular reactors and microreactors. The Khmelnytsky project, once restarted, would need minimum time for completion. We evaluate that we can do it in 3 to 4 years, and the new units will provide annual additional supply of 15 billion kilowatts to the energy system of Ukraine. The next project is building new nuclear units in Ukraine using Westinghouse AP1000 technology, which we believe should become the flagship project. The first 2 units under the project will be built at the Khmelnytsky nuclear power plant. And this project has full support from our government. And just to announce for everybody that just last week, we received an order from the government, Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, adopted the purchase of AP1000 equipment reactor island, actually by Energoatom for this purpose. The AP1000 projects will provide Energoatom and Ukraine with substantial economic benefits with more than 60% of localization. It is also preliminarily considered that some of these units can be located in the Odessa Oblast, which will additionally increase the potential for exporting electricity from Ukrainian nuclear power plants, again to Moldova and Romania. Ukraine also counts on small modular reactors, which could be used in different ways. In particular, they could help in recovery of Ukraine energy system and replace thermal generation partially or completely destroyed by Russian attacks. Ukraine has signed a memorandum of understanding with major SMR vendors like Holtec, Westinghouse, NewScale, and Rolls-Royce. I think that considering the interest of Romania and Moldova and SMRs, there is a field for cooperation between our countries to gain maximum benefit of our experience, scientific and technical and manufacturing capabilities. Energoatom's plan is to establish a hub of nuclear technologies, which would include engineering and commercial production of major equipment and components. We expect to deploy the SMR fleet by the middle of the 2030s and produce carbon-free electricity both for domestic use and export. Of course, all this would be possible when we expel the aggressor from our land, and our armed forces are now fighting for it in the east and south of Ukraine. We would welcome your support of our efforts and hope to expand the ties between our countries in the energy field in the near future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. KOTIN. Indeed, very interesting developments in Ukraine, and despite the war, despite all the dangers, you're still on track. You're acting like things are normal, although they are not, and I congratulate you on that, and I wish you good luck. The last live speaker of today's panel is my colleague Bogdan Bernaga. Bogdan has He's from the private sector. He has a vast track record in renewable energy. And I would kindly ask him to share with us his experience, what are the challenges of doing renewable energy business in Romania, and what he anticipates can be the challenges in developing mutual renewable energy projects between countries like Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine. Please, Bogdan, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. PACHIU. Good evening. So I'm gonna try to illustrate in my brief remarks in like 3 parts. One is what I think can be done. 2 is how can it be done. And 3, what to do with the output that we'll be creating. So what can be done? Offshore wind, Mr. BURDUJA has mentioned, Romania is working on developing a plan to try to attain between 3 and 5,000 gigawatts, 3 and 5,000 megawatts, sorry, by 2032. And clearly the study that the Ministry of Energy will be undertaking will be essential in identifying the parameters, and from then on to open it to auctions and hopefully open it widely to the private sector. But obviously we're talking only about Romanian, the Romanian waters. Clearly Ukraine will have a similar, if not larger, potential, let's say in shallow waters. So we're talking, let's say, between 10 and 15,000 megawatts between the 2 countries. And I'm only talking about offshore wind, which is compared to onshore wind, especially given new technologies. The wind is more predictable, is stronger. It operates more or less like a baseload plant, if properly managed. Again, and I'm ignoring the military aspect, which is clearly being discussed in another forum or fora. So that's the offshore wind. Obviously onshore wind, Romania is trying to develop both wind and solar, about 10,000 megawatts by 2032. A lot of it has happened with, I don't know if you know, but only the solar panels that people put on their houses over the past 2-3 years, we're talking about by mid next year, maybe 1,500 megawatts, which is a hell of a lot of electricity and very difficult to manage by the distribution, the operators and the transmission operator. But that's another discussion. So Romania is looking at developing about 10,000 gigawatts of renewable capacity onshore, maybe about 5,000 megawatts offshore. Clearly Ukraine has the potential to do at least as much as this. I'm talking about the southern region of Ukraine and the waters offshore Odessa and clearly what's next to Romania, so that perhaps we can be looking at projects of where we cooperate and what's most important is to cooperate in the interconnection and the actual transformer stations, which are going to be located on land. So instead of building 2 large transformer stations, we can build 1 large one. We're talking about the logistical hubs. Clearly offshore wind is more challenging than onshore wind. And this is stuff that can be done with less costs or economies of scale, let's say. I'm not trying to exclude Moldova from this endeavor, but I'm going to mention Moldova at the end of my my brief chat. And then how can it be done? Well, I'm of the opinion that one should copy others, or work on the basis of precedent. So let's say, for instance, transformer stations. Holland has organized an auction for offshore wind 2-3 years ago, whereby they built all of the land interconnection, the main transformer station. So the private investors only had to bid and build the actual generating capacity. The result was that the winning bid, the winning tariff was lower than otherwise would have been. And that's better for the end user, whether it's the domestic consumers or the industrial customers. One could copy the example of the Baltic Sea nations or the North Sea nations, where they look to build together energy islands. And I'm going to come back to that. So that's the how. What's very important is for the governments or the state-owned entities to create a stable and predictable regulatory framework that's not going to change overnight, and to provide this infrastructure, and then let the private sector go and compete and build and achieve and commission the plants. Now, what are we, I mean, look, we're planning in Romania to build 10,000 megawatts of renewable capacity onshore, another 5,000 megawatts of renewable capacity offshore. Then we're planning to do, I don't know how much nuclear, maybe another 1,500 megawatts. There's going to be about 3,500 megawatts of gas-fired power plants with a 25 to 30 year lifetime. Then you heard the gentleman from Ukraine. They're going to build a hell of a lot of electric capacity. So what are we going to do with all those electricity? Who's going to buy it? Look, we can have all the interconnection we have, all the interconnectors we have. This is a hell of a lot of electricity to export, and clearly it will help. Some of it will be exported via towards Western Europe, whether it's via Romania and Hungary, or whether it's via Ukraine and then Poland and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, this is a lot of electricity. So what we can do is export the electricity under different, I guess not as electrons, but perhaps as hydrogen. And this is the whole idea of the North Sea and Baltic Sea energy islands, whereby they put 2,000-3,000 megawatts of offshore wind together, and then they produce hydrogen, and that is then transported to whoever needs it, whether it's transport infrastructure, whether it's, I don't know, steel production, cement. There are many uses for hydrogen. And I actually don't think it's a bridge too far. I think it's going to happen. And it's going to happen first in Western Europe, but why not plan for it to happen in our part of the world over the next 10 to 15 years? And we need to start planning right now. So I guess this is pretty much the end of my brief comment.
Excellent, Bogdan. Thank you very much. This was a breeze of fresh air, pragmatic approach to the concerns regarding energy cooperation between the three countries, Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine. We have a last recording that I would kindly ask you to welcome. It is a very comprehensive speech of the Assistant Secretary of State for Energy Resources, United States, Mr. Geoffrey PYATT. And I would now invite you to watch it.
Friends in Bucharest, it's such a pleasure to join Minister BURDUJA, Cosmin and many others that I've worked with so closely to talk today about the reconstruction of Ukraine and the essential role of our transatlantic partnership, especially with Romania. These are two critical priorities for the U.S. government and for my whole team at the Bureau of Energy Resources. So I really want to thank the new Strategy Center for inviting me to be with you. I'm just returned from COP28 in Dubai, where I had the opportunity to meet with Minister BURDUJA to discuss the very same issues that your conference is examining today. As I emphasized to the minister, the United States views Romania as a key NATO ally, both bilaterally but also in the wider regional context. My 3 visits to Bucharest in my first year as Assistant Secretary and the large U.S. delegation to the 3 Seas Summit in September are testaments to the importance that we place on our bilateral relationship with Romania, which covers the full spectrum of energy security and energy transition priorities. For today's conference, I'll outline a few areas in which we're collaborating closely, beginning with our bilateral work to advance Romania's energy security and energy transition priorities, which benefit both Romania and the wider region. As a result of Vladimir Putin's invasion, the energy map of Europe has been redrawn dramatically. European partners have decoupled from Russian energy supplies much more quickly than most people expected. Going into this winter, Europe is in a relatively strong position, in part thanks to the work that we've done together through the US-EU Energy Council, the work of American gas producers, and not least because of efforts on both sides of the Atlantic to accelerate our energy transitions. Romania is a fantastic partner in this regard, supporting the wider region's energy security and leading the transition to clean energy sources. Romania is on the road to becoming Europe's largest gas producer, and it's also a country with which the United States, and my bureau in particular, has an excellent partnership on offshore wind, working with the government as it develops a legal framework, hopefully to attract American and other foreign investment to offshore wind projects. I'm very excited about the work we will do ahead in the region on issues of clean hydrogen, carbon management, electrification, and especially how we will develop the greater capacity across the region for a decarbonized economy, something that fits perfectly into the 3 Cs concept. In the civil nuclear sector, we're partnering to refurbish Unit 1 of the Chornovoda nuclear power plant, as well as to construct new Units 3 and 4, which will nearly double Chornovoda's generation capacity by 2031. We also fully and unequivocally continue to back the small modular reactor project in Geoffrey, which includes financial backing from the U.S. Exim Bank and the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. This project continues to advance in a positive direction, something that I was able to reaffirm along with Exim Bank CEO and Chair Rita Jo Lewis in our meeting in Dubai with Minister BURDUJA. Our bilateral cooperation with Romania also supports a larger transatlantic agenda, and in particular, our collective support for Ukraine and Moldova. Together, we are strongly committed to helping Ukraine keep its lights on, its heat and critical services running through this winter, as Russia continues to carry out a brutal and unjustified series of attacks against Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Putin's efforts to weaponize the winter against the people of Ukraine failed last winter, but as we have seen in recent weeks, he's trying again, this time with more targeted swarm attacks against key power generation and transmission nodes. As I've said time and time again, Vladimir Putin must fail for the sake of all of our countries on both sides of the Atlantic. It's imperative that the United States, Romania, and all of our international partners stand strong together to deliver the critically needed equipment that Ukraine needs, to support active and passive defense, and to set Ukraine on a path to reconstructing a future energy system that is cleaner, greener, more resilient, and fully aligned with European standards. Romania was one of the first countries to volunteer to join our G7 group supporting Ukraine's energy sector. The G7 Plus group now comprises 18 countries and 5 multilateral organizations. Last winter alone, our G7 Plus partners provided over $1 billion in energy-related assistance to Ukraine, including equipment, generators, and support for emergency heating. Europe, with a significant push from Romania, has more fully integrated Ukraine into its power grid, providing needed emergency electricity imports into Ukraine while simultaneously helping to accelerate Ukraine's pivot towards the European Union. Our bilateral work between the U.S. and Romania also complements our support for Ukraine's long-term reconstruction and the integration of Ukraine and Moldova into the EU energy market. It's remarkable to me that Ukraine has been so successful in continuing to articulate a vision of a future energy system fully integrated with Europe, even while it is fighting a war for its territorial survival. Achieving this vision will be no small task. The World Bank has estimated that Ukraine needs at least $411 billion for recovery and reconstruction, and that was 8 months ago. Every day, this figure continues to grow as a result of Putin's brutal war. The electricity grid's damage alone amounted to $10 billion in 2022. Governments cannot fill this gap by themselves. The private sector has to play a central role, especially in the energy area. The key to increasing commercial investment in Ukraine will be reforms that create a stronger business-enabling environment built on market principles, transparency, and European standards. While a lot of work remains to be done, I'm tremendously encouraged by the reforms already underway to improve corporate governance and to create transparent and open markets in Ukraine that meet European standards. Now, the EU accession process provides a clear roadmap through which we all can support both Ukraine and Moldova as they further integrate themselves with the European energy system. This is another area where Romania is uniquely positioned to help, having successfully completed the EU accession process in the last 20 years. Romania has unique experience regarding the structural and legislative changes needed to align with the EU framework, as well as valuable best practices regarding how best to absorb the significant amounts of aid that come with the accession process. Lastly, I would like to highlight the tremendous long-term potential of Ukraine's energy sector. Ukraine is not a charity case. Rather, it's an economic opportunity for Europe and Eastern Europe, and it is a country that fully aligns with Romania's future energy system. Romania, for instance, will be the first Black Sea country to deploy offshore wind. It has a robust civil nuclear sector, and it will be the first in Europe to deploy a small modular reactor. All these technologies are also part of Ukraine's 2050 energy strategy, so there's a tremendous potential to build further synergy. Ukraine also should play a central role in developing global clean energy supply chains, which will in turn help to benefit Romania and the EU's domestic energy production. As the world transitions away from fossil fuels and towards more electrification and clean energy, there's a rapidly growing demand for cables, wind turbines, solar panels, pipes, and other key inputs. Ukraine's strong legacy of manufacturing can play a significant role in producing the materials that Europe and the world need to realize our collective energy transition goals. To achieve this vision as a manufacturing and energy production hub, Ukraine and its partners We'll have to invest more in the infrastructure needed to generate, transport, store, and consume much increased volumes of clean electricity. This is another area where Romania is going to be a leader as it reconfigures its own electricity grid to expand interconnections with Moldova and other neighbors, as well as to generate and accommodate new flows of power from all along the Black Sea and Caspian regions. So as you can see, there are so many synergies where Romania's energy sector priorities and its work with the United States complements our support to Ukraine and Moldova, both now, but also looking out years into the future. The United States remains committed to strengthening our bilateral partnership with Romania, which is paying dividends for both countries, but also for the wider region. So with that key point, I want to say thank you again for inviting me to speak. I wish you a productive conference, and I very much look forward to seeing how we continue to build on the tremendous opportunities in the bilateral U.S.-Romania energy relationship, but also the leadership that Romania is exercising in Moldova, in Ukraine, and beyond. Thank you very much.
We are grateful for this contribution, and since there are very few minutes left, I would now call for the audience to address any questions to the panelists. I'm afraid there's only two panelists left, Mr. Bernaga and Mr. KOTIN from Ukraine, so please. Well, it seems like, there is one question, please. There's a microphone behind you.
Thank you very much for all these presentations. I'm Basat Öztürk, ambassador from Turkey, Director General International Security Affairs. I just wanted to ask the question to the panelist who is alive and present here in particular, who said that rightly so there would be an extra output, an extra capacity for electricity in the coming years and decades, as we see Romania, Ukraine, and all others in the region, and the Caspian also countries are working hard for that.
Let's not forget Turkey.
I'm not mentioning because it would be self-appreciation, it would not be right. So excluding us, even the surplus capacity, which you have mentioned, you suggested that it can be turned into hydrogen, but it needs a lot of investment also. To store hydrogen, to transmit hydrogen is not an easy task. So that means the investors will be suffering a lot in the coming years, and there will be a cycle, most probably, very cheap electricity, no customers, and soon there would be no investors. How do you assess this dilemma? Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question, and first of all, I'm glad that we have Turkey present here. And you have a point. You mentioned cheap electricity. If the electricity is cheap, the investor will not invest. I mean, it makes no sense. I heard everybody was speaking about trying to get to cheap electricity. I don't think we want to get there. We want to get to reasonably priced electricity. Clearly, the end user would like to get as cheap, the electricity as cheap as possible. And you have different types of consumers. You have the domestic consumers, you have the people that are struggling to pay the bills. You have the industrial consumers. But I think the predictability of the prices predictability of reasonable prices, not predictability of high prices, is very important. And for that, you need to give, to remove the uncertainty from the investors. And one way to remove the uncertainty from the investors is to make sure that your regulatory regime, the rules and regulations are transparent, they're clear, they don't change overnight, and also that you invest on what, look, the investors are investing to produce electricity or hydrogen. The infrastructure needs to be, this is where the grant money needs to go. Infrastructure, transformer station, high voltage lines, perhaps even, I guess, logistical hubs that will assist both, I guess, offshore wind and natural gas exploration in the Black Sea. I think that's where the focus of the EU grant money should be, and that will actually reduce the price of electricity for the end user while keeping it as an attractive investment option for the private investors. And I think the first part of your question is, where will the electricity go? Or no, the hydrogen thing. Well, I mean, clearly, most of Western Europe is looking at support schemes to encourage the, I guess, the development of hydrogen production. And I don't really have any answer to that. All I can say is that, you know, look at renewable electricity, I guess 15, 20 years ago. You had a certain support scheme in place. It allowed for renewable electricity to start to be built, to develop, and now you already are looking at different support schemes for renewable electricity. So I guess hydrogen will probably follow a similar path. It's not going to be easy. We're talking about a lot of money, but give the investors predictability, allow them to build 15-year business plans, and you know, you'd be amazed at what can be achieved.
Thank you, Bogdan. Any more questions from the audience? Well, I think that this concludes the work of this panel. Once again, I wish to thank the panelists. First of all, I wish to thank the audience for being here, and wish you a pleasant evening and a next day full of mind-challenging information and debates. Once again, thank you very much. Good evening.